Alexander checked the address on his datapad 3 times before pressing the buzzer. The apartment complex on Station Kepler 442 wasn't fancy, but it was all a human engineer fresh out of Earth could afford. The advertisement had been vague about the current tenants, mentioning only 2 professionals seeking third roommate. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing 2 beings that definitely weren't human. "You must be Alexander," said the taller one. Her skin a shifting pattern of bioluminescent, scales that reminded him of deep-sea creatures from Earth. Her voice carried a melodic quality that his universal translator rendered into perfect English. "I'm Zixthara. This is my sister Valmora." The second alien was smaller, with crystalline features that refracted light into rainbow patterns across the walls. Both wore what appeared to be standard station casual wear, though tailored for their unique anatomies. Alexander swallowed his surprise. The galaxy was diverse. He'd known that. He just hadn't expected his roommates to be Aquelan sisters, a species he'd only read about in xenobiology databases. "Nice to meet you both," he managed, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Zixthara looked at his hand with curiosity before carefully grasping it. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished stone. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The human bonding ritual. We've read about this." "It's just a handshake," Alexander said with a nervous laugh. "Just?" Valmora's crystalline eyes glowed brighter. "Nothing a species does, just anything. Every custom has meaning." They showed him the apartment, a modest 3-bedroom unit with a common area and a small kitchen. Alexander's room was sparse but functional, with a window overlooking the station's central garden dome. "The rent is split 3 ways, Zixthara explained. "We share cooking duties, though I should warn you, our dietary requirements are quite different from yours. We've sectioned off one part of the cooling unit for your perishables." "We've never lived with a human before," Valmora admitted, her voice tinged with something that might have been excitement. "Your species is still relatively new to galactic society. We have so many questions." Alexander moved in that evening. Over the following weeks, he discovered that living with 2 Aquelan women was nothing like he'd expected. They were meticulous about cleanliness, often spending hours ensuring every surface gleamed. They found his human habit of sleeping for 8 consecutive hours both wasteful and fascinating, as they only required brief meditation periods throughout the day. But it was the little things that surprised him most. One morning, Alexander stumbled into the kitchen to find Zixthara staring intently at his coffee maker, her scales flickering with confusion. "How does this device not poison you?" she asked seriously. "The liquid is nearly boiling. Your species has such fragile epithelial tissue." Alexander laughed and poured himself a cup. "We like it hot. Want to try?" "Absolutely not," she said, but her eyes tracked his every sip with scientific fascination. The real test came 3 weeks later, when Alexander fell ill with a severe flu, a virus he'd picked up from another human on the station. He downplayed it, insisting he just needed rest. But by the second day, he was feverish and barely able to leave his bed. He woke to find both sisters in his room, their faces etched with concern. "Your body temperature has increased by 2.3 degrees, Valmora said, her crystalline hand hovering over his forehead without touching. "We've consulted the station's medical database. This is dangerous for humans." "I'll be fine," Alexander croaked. "It's just the flu, just." Zixthara's scales flashed red, an emotion Alexander had learned meant distress. "You said that word again. Nothing about your suffering is just anything." They refused to leave. Valmora used her natural cooling properties to help regulate his temperature, while Zixthara prepared a broth that, while tasting nothing like human food, was perfectly calibrated to his nutritional needs during illness. They took shifts monitoring him, consulting human medical texts. and even arguing with the station's human doctor about his treatment protocol. Your species doctors are far too casual about fevers, Zixthara grumbled after one such call. If an Aqualan's temperature rose like that, we'd consider it a medical emergency. Different species, different tolerances, Alexander said weakly. But he was touched by their concern. On the fourth day, when his fever finally broke, he found them both asleep in chairs they dragged into his room, their bodies arranged in protective positions around his bed. Something warm spread through his chest that had nothing to do with illness. After he recovered, things shifted. Velmora began teaching him about Aqualan music, frequencies that human ears could barely perceive, but that he found strangely soothing. Zixthara started joining him for morning coffee, sipping her own nutrient solution while they discussed everything from station politics to the nature of consciousness. One evening, as they all sat in the common area, Velmora said quietly, "We told our family about you." They were skeptical at first. Humans have a reputation for being ... volatile. Dangerous, Zixthara added bluntly. Emotional, unpredictable. Alexander felt his stomach drop. And now? The sisters exchanged a look, their unique forms of communication passing between them. Now, Velmora said, her crystalline features softening, we tell them humans are dangerous because they make you care about them. You break all our careful logic with your coffee rituals and your terrible sleep schedules and your insistence that friendship is just friendship, when clearly it's everything. Zixthara's scales rippled with colors Alexander had learned meant contentment. You're teaching us that sometimes the most alien thing isn't how we look or what we eat. It's how much we have in common when we bother to look. Alexander smiled, raising his coffee mug. To weird roommates? To family, Velmora corrected, and Zixthara nodded in agreement. As the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Alexander realized he'd come to space looking for opportunity. Instead, he'd found something far more valuable. Proof that home wasn't about species or planets. It was about the people who stayed up all night to watch over your fever, who argued with doctors on your behalf, and who insisted that nothing you did was ever just anything, even handshakes. The end.